Hi folks, this is video number 56 and the title is My Dogs. My Dogs. Over the years I've had a number of dogs. Two of them I will always remember. Their names were Rocky and Duke. Rocky was a black and white English Springer. Back then English were black and white and Welsh Springers were liver and white. I'm not sure if that is still the case, as there may have been crossbreeding, etc. I really don't know. He was professionally trained in Indiana, I believe. I got him from a guy at work. He didn't have the time to spend with him and wanted to know if I would want him. I did. Rocky taught me to hunt birds. Springers are flushing dogs. They do not point. You had to pay attention to how he was acting to know when he was on a bird. There were a few times when he flushed a pheasant, the pheasant didn't fly high, but stayed just above the weeds and seeds in an already chopped cornfield. With Rocky right on the bird's tail, I could not shoot. I just yelled, "Fetch him, Rock!" They aren't called springers for the heck of it. He would jump up and grab the bird with his front feet and take it down. He would pick it up and bring it back to me. I just had to wring its neck. No shot to bite into at dinner. I really didn't get into duck hunting when I had Rocky. I hunted grouse, pheasants, and woodcock. I almost lost him one day. I threw a stick out into a pond for him to fetch. He jumped right in and was headed in the right direction, but he lost sight of the stick. The stick was close to a little branch sticking up above the water. Rocky grabbed that instead. He pulled, twisted, tugged, but would not let go of it. I ended up having to wade out and get him before he drowned fighting with that branch. He was determined to bring it back. A couple of times when Rocky was pursuing a pheasant, the bird ran down a chuck hole to escape. One time in particular comes to mind. I could tell by his actions that he was on a bird. He started to run. That meant the bird was running and not flushing. I was trying to catch up. I lost sight of him. I yelled, "Rocky, where are you?" He barked. When I got over to him, he had a huge hole dug down to some large rocks. The hole was about 6 feet across, all fresh dug dirt. It was a chuck hole, and he was determined to get that bird out of there. My black and white dog was now tricolored with the addition of mud. At lunch today, I told Lou I was writing about the dogs. He reminded me of a trip that went like this. There were already two guys with two whistle-trained Brittanies at the site we wanted to hunt. So we just watched for a while. The handler would blow once on the whistle and the dogs turned and quartered left. Two blows and they would quarter to the right. We watched as they covered the entire field in fairly quick fashion. Lou and I were impressed. The two hunters and their rather robotic dogs came back to their truck and told us we were wasting our time. No birds in that field. As the others were stowing the dogs and their equipment, I got Rocky out and unleashed him. I told him to put him up. Rocky cross-quartered out about 20 yards and put up two roosters. Lou and I each harvested one. We didn't say anything to the other guys. I didn't think we had to. That type of thing occurred a few times over the years. He put up a mallard in a little pothole outside of my shopping. I shot the duck and it tumbled into the brush on the far side. It was difficult to negotiate the high brush. When we finally got through the jungle, I could not believe what I found. There was a small opening in the brush that the duck tumbled into. It was the perfect place for a fox to be taking a nap. What I found of the duck was a few feathers and two wings. The darn duck landed right in front of the fox. By the tracks, he held the duck down by the wings and ripped the body away. The fox took off with his treasure. Dinner was served. I never saw the fox, just the tracks told the story. I had Rocky about 4 years and had a chance to get another free dog. I worked with a fellow named Ernie. He asked if I wanted a golden retriever. He was a young dog, just over a year old. He had a strange habit. He would dig up rocks and chew on them and bark at them. I took them. I built Duke a house and put some hay in it. Sure enough, he dug up a rock about the size and shape of a football. He took it in his house and lost it in the hay. I was looking out the window at him as he was barking steadily. I saw the hay coming out of the door like it was from a blower. He found the rock and slept on the hay outside. I built a porch connecting the house to the garage. I had to make a cinder block pillar to support one corner. There were a few blocks left. Duke stretched out as far as he could and got his claws on one of those leftover cinder blocks. He was able to pull it over and then roll it over to himself. He nestled up against that cinder block and gnawed on it until it was a pile of dust. He never broke the rock chewing habit. When he got bored, he'd go into the house and play handball with that football rock, banging it off the inside walls while constantly barking at it. I built a really nice two-place dog box to fit in the bed of my truck between the tailgate and the fender humps. One side for Rocky and the other for Duke. I took them hunting together, figuring Rocky would teach Duke. I was wrong. Each time I took them in the field together, they got into a fight. There's nothing like having to step between two fighting dogs to separate them. It's even more fun in the middle of standing corn. So much for cooperation. I then had to take them both, leave one in the truck for a time, and then swap for the remainder of the trip. I can still see in my mind's eye Duke fetching his first bird. It was a hen pheasant. He ran over to it, and I stood still and told him to fetch. He circled the bird a little and tried to pick it up a few times, and then finally figured it out. He picked it up and trotted back to me like a real trooper. When he put the bird in my hand, I saw he had a big mouthful of feathers from trying to grab it properly. I had to help him clear them out of his mouth. I'm surprised he could breathe. That fetch really tripped his trigger. He became an awesome bird dog. Being a golden retriever, he had a tendency to point. He had a great point with paw up, nose forward, and a beautiful flowing tail out straight. Somehow he figured out that in the field he should point, and in the brush he should flush. During duck hunting, he stayed by my side to spot where the ducks dropped. Unlike myself, he never missed a bird. When I did miss, I got a dirty look, or at least one of wonderment or question. He had some personal experiences involving other animals as well. The first was a woodchuck. I was walking slowly along a hedgerow. Duke was cutting in and out of the hedgerow and quartering both sides as I walked. All at once, he runs out into the field and starts to quarter about 20 yards out into the field. Boom! He slams into a perfect point at the crest of the field. I started to hurry to his location, when all at once a woodchuck stood up right in front of Duke. He was still on solid point. The woodchuck lunged for his nose and barely missed. I actually thought he did bite him on the nose. Why he decided to point that woodchuck, I'll never know. Another time I went by myself, accompanied by Duke, to the little pond in the back of Scottsville. I was able to harvest a nice blue-winged teal that morning. Those birds fly really fast, and that one zipped right past my head. I made a perfect reaction shot. As we were leaving, Duke was ahead of me by about 20 feet or so. All of a sudden, he jumped straight up in the air about 3 feet. Now, what the heck was that about? I noticed a ripple in the water. I stood still and watched. Duke stood and was looking side to side, trying to figure out what was going on. I saw no movement. All at once, Duke jumped up in the air again. I continued to watch and saw a slight movement in the brush. It was a beaver. He came up for air and then would swim under Duke's belly. The water was muddy from our tromping around. You couldn't see the beaver coming or going. I just stood there and enjoyed the show. Duke was really looking around now. The beaver did that to him 4 or 5 times. I was now laughing at him. The beaver was really enjoying himself playing with my unsuspecting dog. Duke never figured it out. Well, that gives you a little bit of an insight what it's like to have two really great bird dogs in your life. They were a lot of fun. We had a good time. So, as always, folks, I wish you all the best.